Hello everyone, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this is Who Cares, where we're going to discuss and debate the Doctor on his adventures through space and time.
So get ready to witness a character more fucked at the end than Nicolas Cage at the end of City of Angels.
A few moments later.
So hello everyone, I'm Hugo.
And I'm still Jake.
And welcome back to the finale episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
A Death in Heaven, written by Stephen Moffat, just like the first part. And in this episode, we have the conclusion to the setup that we have last time, where we find out that Missy is, spoilers, the Master. And we get all the stuff that comes with that. We find out what becomes of Danny, and we finally see how the Doctor deals with the incoming flux of Cybermen.
First impressions.
Here's the thing about this episode. The first part, Dark Water, again written by Stephen Moffat, was really, really strong, and I thought it set up a really good
Probably
cliffhanger.
the best episode of the season.
But the problem is the second part didn't really live up to what I thought the first part was setting up. We still have a lot of unanswered questions. I compared it to Jake earlier with all season. Moffat's kind of been teasing us and jerking us off just a little bit.
Just a little bit, like just getting you to the edge, and then he'll back away and be like, no, I can't, there's people.
Yeah.
There's people around.
And then occasionally you'd lose it, like in Robot of Sherwood. He'd be like, sorry, not really good. But then he'd get it back up again with stuff like, Mummy on the Orient Express. And this is where I finally thought Moffat was going to let us shoot our load all over the fandom and be like, oh yeah, that was so good. But nope, no. At the end we still had Moffat teasing us.
We're pretty blue-balled right now.
And he walked away.
But that said, the experience up to this point, if it wasn't a finale, if it wasn't supposed to be the last, I still think it's a very, very good episode. I'd say number 2 or number 3 in the whole season.
Really? In
my opinion. And not because it doesn't answer questions. I get that, which is fine. But the performances in it are great. I think Danny's great, especially later on in the episode that we'll go through. I think Clara's great. I think the Doctor's great. And I especially think Missy's great. So I think the performances overall are really well done. I just think there's not as much closure as people really wanted. But I don't know. I really enjoyed it anyways. I didn't think it was bad.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but we'll talk about it as we go, as we kind of sum up what happened in the episode. The episode begins right where we left off, with Clara in a room with a Cyberman, and she makes a declaration to him. There is no Clara Oswald. Clara Oswald has never existed, and you'll remember this from the next time, right before the first part of the finale. Yep. And my problem with this is it's the biggest red herring ever, because she says, I'm the Doctor, but it doesn't amount to anything. She's just lying, which I wouldn't have a problem with if they didn't have that be the lead into the episode as if it's going to amount to something.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess when I saw it, it didn't really register because the Doctor's in the episode.
But they could have argued it's some other version of him.
I suppose. But it didn't really. They didn't build that up to it. So for me, it was just like she's just tricking the Cybermen.
I know, which I understand, and I think is obviously the implication too, but even in the intro, they bill her first instead of Peter Capaldi, which is a kind of a joke, and then they show her eyes instead of Capaldi's in the intro. I get it. And it wouldn't be a problem if she was just lying, but the fact that they made it seem like it's going to be something more, even though it obviously isn't.
I think if they didn't put that in the next time, I think it would have been just fine.
Yeah, which is what it is, but I don't like. The problem with Moffat is trying to build up interesting ideas and then just dropping them because he's like, nope, tricked you, haha. But that's not good writing. That's just being an asshole.
Part of me doesn't even know if that's really the intent, and someone at BBC's like, well, that's a really good line, we should put it in the
maybe
thing. I don't know, but
I can't
maybe
imagine.
I'm giving him too much credit, and maybe Moffat's an asshole.
I think he is.
But he could totally be.
I can't imagine he had no say over that.
That's fair.
That's all I'm saying. So then we have the Doctor on the street with Missy, who is the Master, and
great scene.
Yep, all the Cybermen are finally converging, and Michelle Gomez playing the Master here. Can we just say she was the highlight of the episode by far?
Oh yeah,
excellent performance.
I hope that she comes back.
Oh, she almost certainly will.
I mean, there's a little bit of ambiguity at the end. It's I mean, maybe not. It's like an 80-20 thing. But she steals every scene. And between her and the doctor, great stuff every time.
Yeah, she's the perfect mix of clearly crazy, but not like John Sim out of their fucking mind, can't control themselves crazy.
No, like,
she's
more like
still
eccentric.
Yeah, eccentric, but also a genius. Kind of like a lot like the Doctor, which it's what it's supposed to be, and I think she does an excellent job of that. Of course, we have to give credit to Moffat because a lot of that is in the writing, so that's something he succeeded in. But yeah, overall, great performance by her. But the Doctor is confronting her, and the Cybermen come and start to try and take over, but Kate Stewart and the rest of UNIT show up, along with Osgood and bow tie and Converse shoes, and they arrest Missy, knock her out, and the Doctor says to them, guard the graveyards. If you didn't know, the episode basically revolves around the Cybermen cyber-converting all the dead people on planet Earth. And this part of the plan I don't mind. This is actually a good setup for something, and I think this is a plan the Master would do. You see the Master in the classic series teaming up with various monsters to try and do things. I can see the Master, him, her, whatever you want to call Michelle Gomez in this. You can see them teaming up with the Cybermen, or taking control of the Cybermen, rather, to try and accomplish this goal. And this part of the plan works. I'm on board. I'll talk about what happens later and why I'm a little disconnected from it. But the Doctor is loaded onto a plane with the Mistress, the Master, whatever, and Kate Stewart informs him, you're now the president of the world. The contingency plan for this sort of thing says the Doctor becomes the leader of all the armies of the Earth. This, of course, plays into the major theme of the season, which is the Doctor a good man, and the whole thing with soldiers. The problem is, I don't think it was handled super well in this episode.
Yeah, there's definitely weak points to it.
And it's an interesting concept, but again, like a lot of the concepts, and I think this is a problem Moffat has in his finales, he'll bring up interesting concepts and he'll drop them because I think he's a guy who his problem is he has too many interesting ideas for writing, and he doesn't know how to pace himself and do one at a time. He tries to throw 5 in at a time, and then he ends up dropping the first 3 because he's too busy working on the last 2 he came up with.
Yeah, it does seem like that, but at the same time, the episode doesn't feel jumbled and chaotic. It has nice pacing, but I think just basically the stuff around the Doctor seems to be in flux as far as what his situation is, if that makes sense. People who've seen the episode will probably understand what I'm talking about.
So we come back to Danny, and Danny has now been cyber-converted, as everyone else on Earth has. However, he has retained his emotions. So he finds Clara with some other Cybermen, he saves her and takes her to a graveyard. There, they have kind of an argument, but she doesn't realize it's Danny yet, and says, it makes her come
cringy.
Off. Because she says, essentially, if you shoot me, then the Doctor will be here, and he's the only person in the universe I would never lie to, which is shitty of Clara to say, seeing as though her lies are what killed Danny in the first place.
Yeah. To be fair to Clara, maybe because Danny's been dead for so long, maybe she's not really counting him as much anymore as an option of someone she can trust, but because it is Danny right in front of her, and she doesn't know at that time. It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah, he does take off his face mask though, and I mean it's clearly budgetary and it is BBC makeup, but for
it was all right.
The concept for the makeup I thought was really good. You kind of see screws in his face when he takes off the mask, and there's kind of skin tearing. He's obviously paler because he's been dead. It works. It's a good. You can tell he's in pain,
and you can still tell it's Danny, which is good. So they had to kind of write a line, I think, because you can't make him like zombie.
Yeah. So Danny does say to her, "Hey, I'm in serious pain. Please make it stop. Turn on the inhibitor in my chest so my emotions will be gone." And then we cut back to the Doctor on the plane with UNIT. Missy is tied down to a table, kind of like Hannibal in the Hannibal
scene.
movies. She talks to Osgood and says, I have a secret, and I'm not even going to try to imitate her performance. It's just excellent. Has Osgood come over and says in her ear, whispers, I'm going to kill you in a minute. And Osgood's like, whatever, trying to ignore her, but clearly, upset. And then Missy starts doing a countdown. When the countdown's over, she has Osgood look in her pocket. The handcuffs are there that were supposed to be binding Missy. And Missy comes over, grabs Osgood, kills the guards who are behind her. I've heard people complain, why didn't they do anything? The Master, one of his or her powers is hypnotism, so I'll assume she had them hypnotized.
Yeah, they didn't they barely react at all. And they're kind of stoic when she's threatening Osgood's life. I assume that Missy had
some power,
some
over
kind
him.
of like interest over it.
Surprisingly, Missy does outright kill Osgood, which is interesting because the Doctor implied earlier in the episode that maybe he'd be interested in taking her along.
That has happened like 3 times this season. We're like, shit! Especially the guy from the Orient.
Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah. So then the Cybermen start attacking the plane. Lots of people die. The Doctor goes and finds that Missy has escaped, and they have a really good discussion. Kate Stewart, the daughter of the Brigadier, gets thrown out of the plane, and Missy explains to the Doctor, hey, Clara, I brought you two together. This is part of her plan that I still don't quite understand because they don't make it clear her motivation for doing so.
For Clara specifically.
Yeah, because she says along the lines of, the Doctor, and she's a complete control freak, perfect for you, but why? Why is that perfect? I've never understood why that is. She didn't explain why.
There's some exposition, but I guess I really don't know the character motivation behind it, besides maybe just that the Master likes to make sure that he can manipulate all the moving parts.
I guess, but it didn't really amount to anything in the end. If anything, that was the Master/Missy's downfall. But whatever. I mean, again, it's another case of Moffat introducing something like, oh, who's the woman in the shop? Probably without knowing who it's going to be in the end. And then when it finally reveals, they don't get a full reveal, because by then he's already introduced 6 new questions that need to be answered. So Missy teleports out, which is interesting for later, and the Doctor gets thrown out of the plane with the TARDIS. He does kind of a cheesy, but it is Doctor Who, so...
Falls into the TARDIS thing.
Yeah, he falls into the TARDIS.
It's kind of neat.
Yeah, it's alright. It's on that line of cheesy v cool.
The thing that made it good, though, is that you cut back to Seb and Missy watching this unfold, and Seb gets super pumped about the Doctor being able to do this miraculous stuff, and he's like, no way. Are you serious? Is he really jumping into the TARDIS from 10,000 feet in the air and making it? Amazing. And he's really excited about it. And it's interesting to see, like, one of the, air quotes, evil characters being like, man, look at that guy.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's a great scene. Seb was awesome.
I think he's good. I hope if Missy comes back, I hope he comes back. And yes, she killed him, but she explains he's an AI anyway, so he's super easy to come back. Just say you reload his program.
Yeah. And we were talking, it'd be interesting if that's kind of the joke. Like, she kills him whenever he messes up, and you can kind of have a Seb scared of dying all the time and still kill him. Kind of like a Kenny joke. Kind of. But not as lame.
Yeah. So the Doctor does go to the gravesite with Clara. He does know that she's going to try and help Danny by essentially killing him by getting rid of his emotions. The Doctor refuses to until he finds out that if Danny does become fully cyber-converted, he can find out the full range of the plans. And the plans involve the clouds. I assume you've seen the episode. The clouds spread and are helping create the Cybermen by raining the pollen down on the graveyards. So the Doctor gives the screwdriver to Clara, and she does it, and Danny still, surprisingly, doesn't kill her even when his emotions are gone. Which is interesting. Again, it plays into the Doctor, is he a good man thing, but I think it's a little weaker in the sense that the Doctor isn't, in my opinion, wrong in shutting off Danny's emotions.
No,
it's like he's like, no, Danny, I won't help you commit suicide, which I don't agree with already. Like he's akin to a terminal patient at this point.
Yeah.
I'm okay with letting him get put down. And secondly, doing so helps him save the rest of the human race. It's okay.
I think it was more... I think it had less to do with the killing of a person and more to do because it was Danny specifically.
Maybe.
Because he kept looking... If you watch the scene, he keeps looking at Clara while that's happening and kind of like, I don't want to do that to her. Because, I mean, they've had kind of a rough go of it in the last 3 episodes. So.
Fair. Then Missy shows up, and I think Moffat is very aware of the Mary Poppins jokes that people have made because she comes down on an umbrella, and there's kind of a Mary Poppins-esque incidental music.
It's awesome. I really liked it. I thought... And it's because she can pull it off. Yeah. She totally owns all of it. And she's like... She kind of twirls a little bit, and she's just very sassy and kind of got a lot of swagger and not like Kanye swagger. Like great actor swagger.
So she comes down in the plot... And her full plot is finally revealed. She gives a bracelet to the Doctor and says, "This arming is for you. Happy birthday." And he says, "Why?"
It's such a Moriarty kind of moment where it's just like, what the heck? Like, this did not need to happen. But it ties into the Doctor's good or bad thing because she explains, like, so there's a ton of bad shit that happens in the universe. Now you have an army and you can fix anything.
Yeah, and her entire reasoning is essentially, which I like her reasoning, it's just the plan doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah.
Her reasoning is, because I want to show you we're not so different. I want my friend back. Because if you didn't know, the Master and him were supposed to be pretty good friends, like best friends back on Gallifrey when they were younger. It's just that, since then, obviously, their motives have split. It's just that the plan doesn't really make sense, because she puts this bracelet on him and says, either you use the army to conquer the universe for your own means, even if they're good, quotes, or everyone on Earth dies. Well, why? Now he has control. Can't he just tell him not to kill people and stop the clouds?
I don't know. Maybe she still had control with her sonic cell phone thingy.
Maybe.
Which is the coolest gadget of any Doctor Who villain ever so far.
I guess.
But I don't know. I like, that's kind of gray for me. But, I guess there's something in Doctor Who where sometimes you just got to be like, okay, maybe the Master does know, like can control the situation. But then at the same time, Danny ends up taking over.
Yeah.
And totally blows that whole plan up.
Yeah.
Just by being Danny.
Yeah, the Doctor throws the bracelet to Danny. He takes control of the forces, and it's a very interesting moment of redemption for Danny.
Kind of gives like a soldier speech.
Yeah.
It's a little corny, but I think because, again, he's a good actor, so it kind of worked.
Mm-hmm. He flies up into the sky with all the Cybermen, and they destroy all the clouds, thus saving the Earth. Now we just have Clara, Missy, and the Doctor. Clara has picked up the Master's sonic cell phone laser blaster thing, and is about to kill the Master, but the Doctor says, no, let me do it, essentially, because he doesn't want to let Clara have that on her conscience.
Right.
Missy says, say something nice, and the Doctor says, poignant line to her, you win, which is really good. And right before the Doctor can shoot her, there's a laser blast from another Cyberman, who it turns out is the Brigadier.
Which is what a weird callback.
Which is fine. I was fine with it. It was interesting.
I was fine too, but it was sort of just thrown in there.
Yeah.
Kind of like a just a callback. I don't know. It was for its own sake.
Yeah. But it does kind of close the Doctor's arc with soldiers, too, because the Brigadier was a good friend of his who was also a soldier, so it kind of works. But then the Brigadier... Oh, it turns out he grabbed Kate Stewart as she was falling, too. She's not dead.
Which is why he can be autonomous now and didn't go blow up.
Yeah. So Missy, probably not dead. The laser blast makes her disappear, but we also saw Missy transport in this episode.
It looks exactly the same.
And it looks the same. So I assume that's kind of how they'll explain next time how Missy reappears. And I fucking hope Gomez comes back and plays the Master again, because she's excellent.
Has to.
Sometime next season, hopefully. Because I feel like we were teased, but we didn't get a full great episode with her, so I hope we really get another one later.
Yeah. And also, right before that happens, she mentions where Gallifrey is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And she says, have you checked the old location of it? And gives the coordinates. He's like, no, I haven't even thought about that.
So we think for a minute that maybe the Doctor's going to find it, but then, cut to 2 weeks later. 2 weeks later, Clara is at home, and there's a white light and Danny speaking to her. It turns out that after all the Cybermen died, their brains got re-uploaded back into the Nether Sphere temporarily, because without the Master maintaining it, it is shutting down slowly.
Right.
But the Doctor has told Clara at this point that bracelet that Danny had is the thing Missy used to go to and from the Nether Sphere. He had it. He should be able to come back to life. However, instead of coming back himself, he gives the bracelet to the young boy that he killed in the war and sends the boy back. Now, you could argue this is not the best move, seeing as though it's going to be near impossible finding that kid's parents.
And they were in Iraq.
During a war.
So maybe they're dead.
Yeah.
I mean, and also, like, do you send the kid back to his war-torn country?
Yeah, what do you do?
Like, don't get me wrong, it's getting a little bit better, but it's certainly not good.
Yeah, and I get that it's Danny's redemption arc, but
It was a little weird. The whole thing with Danny is, though, he's extremely selfless, so I think it makes sense. I don't know if that's actually the last time or not.
Yeah, who knows?
It feels like it, but again, Doctor Who stuff, so
yeah, who knows?
Could be.
And then Clara meets the Doctor in a cafe. Clara says to the Doctor, I have some bad news. She's about to tell him about Danny, but then the Doctor says, no, it's okay, I understand. You can't travel with me anymore because you're happy with Danny. And she's about to tell him the truth, like, no, he's dead. But instead, he says, it's okay. I found Gallifrey. And for a second, you think, oh,
he found
it. That story arc ended quicker than I thought, but no.
You get a flashback.
To him in the TARDIS going to the coordinates Missy gave him. He goes to the door and opens it. There's nothing there. Missy lied, and he fucking loses it. And this is, again, Capaldi, when given great material, even without dialogue, he can act the shit out of it. He goes back to the console and breaks it, and he's just torn up. It's excellent.
Yeah.
So
and now they're both sitting in this cafe lying to each other, which is basically what they've always done to each other.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting. And even though I don't know if either of them really believed the other one, but they both let it go.
Yeah, so after that, the Doctor returns to the TARDIS. Apparently, Clara's not going to be around anymore, and the episode ends. Or does it? Then we have a weird stinger.
It's one of my favorite stingers.
Where Nick Frost, as Santa Claus, comes into the TARDIS and says to the Doctor, "It can't end like that. You know she's not all right." And then it ends, which will lead into the Christmas special, which we'll talk about.
Santa Claus!
I'm so confused as to what's going to be.
Yes.
But final thoughts for the episode itself. There were definitely excellent parts. Some of the parts of this episode were the best parts of any parts in the season.
Absolutely.
Especially the Missy parts, the Doctor at the end and not finding Gallifrey. Excellent. But as a whole, it felt sort of incomplete, and even though it had an extra length running time, it didn't feel like Moffat utilized that to its fullest potential.
I think maybe in context of the next season, this episode will look better.
Maybe.
But for what it was, as far as what are sampling from this first season of the Capaldi Doctor, I'd say we got a good ending. Not a great one, not even one of my favorites, but a good, sufficient ending, as long as they address if they don't address the questions, which I don't think they'll do, but if they just like bring Missy back and don't explain anything, or if they never talk about Danny again, or if Clara's just gone forever, which I don't think is going to happen. I think they're going to talk about it in the Christmas special. But like if they don't address those things, bad episode.
Yeah.
But just the way they continue to set it up, I think that's going to be an arc, and I think we're going to see the Master come back. And honestly, if Series 2 of Capaldi is where we're going to start getting Gallifrey stuff, I would love to see different Time Lords, kind of, and Hugo and I were talking again last night after we watched it, kind of like Mega Man style, where each episode maybe you get a different Time Lord, quote, boss, and kind of you have this weird interaction, like, and in that way you can put in the Valiard and the Ronnie and stuff like that, and just new characters even.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be interesting. I don't expect it, but I still think it'd be very cool, and especially if Missy doesn't come back, terribly disappointed, but I think she will, because everything was excellent.
Yeah, my biggest problem with the episode is the unanswered questions about how did Missy actually escape Gallifrey? When did she regenerate from the last Master? Where's her TARDIS? What is her TARDIS? I mean, people have theorized it's the red police boxes, but we never see it. They mention that the cathedral that the Cybermen came out of, there was space folded inside it, kind of like a TARDIS, but that's
TARDIS
not
technology.
That's not her actual TARDIS, though. That's just a space she was utilizing. So those questions I hope get answered next season.
I wouldn't mind actually a Master episode where maybe the Doctor was barely in it,
Yeah.
and you follow Missy around for a whole episode and see that kind of process,
That'd be
which would be
interesting.
terribly interesting.
Yeah, but other than that, there's nothing to talk about except for the next time trailer for the Christmas special. We have a very strange mixing of themes where it looks almost alien-esque, where there's almost a xenomorph and very dark North Pole base. It looks like a science base, and then at the very end we have Santa Claus show up.
Dude, Nick Frost though, I mean,
yeah, I think
he's great.
Yeah,
and I'm really glad to see one of those guys.
Yeah.
Like, BBC and just the UK in general has like a select few celebrities that you just
like
love.
10 actors.
Yeah, like if it's not Cumberbatch, you want Nick Frost. Not really, but
Simon Pegg's been in.
Simon
Doctor Who,
Pegg's
too.
great too. Like, I'm just really excited to see what happens, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, until December, this is it for Who Cares. I mean, thanks everyone for watching. I know some people got sick of all the Doctor Who videos, but I know there are a lot of you who enjoy them, and I'm glad. And even though we probably won't be doing this for a while, until the Christmas special at least, and probably a long time after that until the next series starts, hopefully we'll do a couple intermediary Doctor Who videos, maybe discussing classic Who, or maybe talking about new Who episodes we really like or really dislike.
In the meantime, we're going to be doing a lot of other content. We're going to start some Let's Plays that we've been meaning to get to but haven't had time for. We're going to do some more movie reviews. We're going to be doing more Goosebumps. We're going to be doing Power Ranger stuff. We might do a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
We got a whole bunch of plans for this, and as time permitting, we will have plenty of content.
So thank you, everyone. It has truly been a great experience enjoying this series with you. Until next time, I'm Hugo,
And I'm Jake.
and this has been Who Cares?